Hello everyone, I'm Colin, and welcome back to everyone's favorite lipedema reaction channel. I'm kidding, but I have spent a lot of time on this channel talking about lipedema and talking about the influencer Anna O'Brien, also known as Glitter and Lasers. And I'm sure some people were expecting me to talk about Anna's most recent lipedema surgery, and I do have some thoughts about that, but I have many more thoughts about some other things I've seen lately. If you're new here, I have often talked about Anna O'Brien, who is an influencer who was mostly in the realm of like fashion and lifestyle before she took a hard turn into health content, which inspired me to take a hard turn into health content, so thanks for that. Anna has lipedema, which is a condition that causes a higher distribution of fat on the legs and chronic pain. However, when she started on her surgery journey last year, a lot of the things that she said and her doctor said didn't sound logical to me, which led to me doing a ton of research, and I ended up making a 3.5-hour deep dive into lipedema and all the controversies therein. That video is called The Debate Around This Fat Disorder, and I will link that in the description if you want to check it out. I'll try to give you the cliff notes for the things I want to talk about today, but that video is there if you want the deeper context. I am not a doctor or a medical expert by any means, but I have interviewed one of the leading experts, Dr. Tobias Berch, and he and his colleagues approved of my video, so I am confident enough to offer my non-professional opinion about what's going on, but this is obviously not medical advice. Anna has already had 2 surgeries to remove fat on her legs, and her most recent one was on her arms and calves. And at the risk of just repeating myself over and over, I think what her surgeon, Dr. David Amron, is doing is dangerous and wrong. Contrary to what he and his associates say, lipedema is not unburnable fat that grows for no reason. It's disproportionate and painful fat, but lipedema patients can lose weight just like everyone else. Physics does indeed apply to everyone. Experts like Dr. Berch and his associates at the International Lipedema Association actually recommend against performing liposuction on obese patients like Anna. The priority is to get them down to a healthy, sustainable weight and then assess if they might be candidates for liposuction. But some surgeons, like Dr. Amron, push even obese patients into liposuction as if that's the only way they'll be able to lose the fat.
So usually about stage 2, she just begins to lose the whole battle with it, and she can find herself starving, eating very, very little, and she's still putting on weight, right?
And I think it's very telling that Dr. Amron advertises his practice on social media and partners with influencers to do so. I think a lot of people who watch Anna have noticed that she started to gain abdominal weight since she had liposuction on her legs, which is to be expected, because if you remove fat cells and you continue to gain weight, you're just going to gain it wherever you haven't had liposuction. And I'm not here to body shame anyone, I just worry that what Anna's doctors are doing is actually harming her overall health, because they're not addressing the real problem of obesity. Not to mention, abdominal fat is even more damaging to your body than fat on your limbs. So imagine my surprise when I opened Instagram the other day and I saw this.
Hi, my name is Anna O'Brien and I am having my 3rd surgery. One thing that's become apparent is that I need to take care of the rest of my body, because while the pain in my thighs where I had treatment pretty much is gone, to be honest, I still have pain in my arms and my calves and even in my torso, and I'm more aware of them now that my thighs aren't hurting. Excited, honestly, for my last surgery, which is my abdomen, because I think when it's all done, I'm gonna be able to conquer the world.
I really shouldn't be surprised. This was not the first time I've heard Dr. Amron or his associates talk about abdominal lipedema. This is an extremely controversial belief, and it's something that most international experts refute. Actually, one of my favorite papers by Dr. Berch is a response to American doctors in which he compares the concept of abdominal lipedema to opening Pandora's box. More and more often, we see obese patients who claim to suffer from whole-body lipedema, or lipedema of the abdomen, which is also often certified by medical colleagues, and who see this as the cause of their weight gain. Here, we would like to shout out loud to the author of the letter, "Hold, Mr. Schmeller, no, please do not open this Pandora's box." It seems that the box has now been opened. Most lipedema patients are also obese, And some doctors, like Dr. Amron, say these patients aren't actually obese, it's just their condition making them appear that way. They perpetuate the myth that lipedema fat is different, and it can grow perpetually even if the patient is in a calorie deficit, which leads to people getting liposuction because they think it's their only option before they lose mobility.
But I did see several doctors, and every single one of them said the same thing, which was that I was very close to losing mobility.
So many women don't know that they have lipedema until they're in the later stages and wheelchair bound.
So in keeping with that, it seems Dr. Amron is probably going to perform a tummy tuck on Anna. I've already seen other patients talk about having one for their abdominal lipedema, and I think these surgeons are horribly wrong for doing this. I'm not sure what to say about Anna's surgery that I haven't already said about her others. I don't think her surgeons are harmful in the sense that they perform liposuction or plastic surgery badly. I think they're unethical for spreading misinformation and for doing these surgeries on obese patients who clearly haven't addressed their problems with food. And when these patients gain that weight back, usually in their abdomens, their surgeons tell them that it's just their lipedema progressing.
Even though my torso wasn't affected yet, it hadn't progressed, you can really still see the arms at this point.
It's very hard for me to watch Anna these days. It kind of feels like watching a car accident in slow motion. I genuinely hope she gets a grip on what her real problems are before it gets so much worse. But I don't have much faith that'll happen, especially since her infamous podcast where she discussed having rare obesity genes that make her gain weight no matter what she does.
So now we know that these genes caused all my symptoms, the weight stuff, the anemia, the lipedema, the tumor, the thyroid issues, but we can't really do anything about it.
I have a video breaking that down too. But beyond Anna, there is no shortage of other influencers spreading misinformation about lipedema. When I did my big deep dive, I noticed there is a niche subset of lipedema influencers who center their whole social media presence around having this condition. For a while it seemed Anna was going in that direction too, but I guess maybe it didn't go as planned because it seems she's pivoted again to, I don't know, being a menace in Costco. I've talked about a couple of these other influencers before, most notably Allison Jacobs and Kara Cruz, or Pale Ginger Pear. And I've said in the past that I didn't necessarily have as much of an issue with them because I felt like they were just victims of circumstance, or victims of their doctors. In a lot of ways, Anna has been too, but I felt like she pushed and advertised her medical journey maybe a little harder than most. But I'm starting to see that maybe these other influencers really aren't that different. I hang out in Zachary Michael's Discord pretty often, and someone there shared this video of Kara Cruz that I hadn't seen before.
I have my first official GLP-1 dose from Mochi. I'm excited to partner with them as they understand that this journey is more than just a number on the scale, but that this is an important tool for my lipedema inflammation management. On a GLP-1, let's connect. Comment below.
Now, first of all, naming your weight loss drug company after a dessert is a choice. But also, are we really doing this? Just shilling medicine? I know Kara is not the first nor the last influencer to advertise GLP-1s. And look at Anna and Allison fully promoting surgeries with Dr. Amron. It goes beyond sharing their experiences online. They call themselves ambassadors. It's advertising. What worries me about people like Kara and Allison and Anna, all these other lipedema influencers, is that this has become so normalized in their community. People push compression pumps, compression garments, supplements, and now weight loss medication and surgery with affiliate links. It's nuts. It's bad enough that in the US it's legal to advertise medication, but it's even creepier that it's now coming from influencers whose entire job is to create a parasocial relationship with their followers. So that's a big part of the problem here, but did you notice anything strange about Kara's ad for weight loss medication? Maybe the lack of focus on weight loss?
I'm excited to partner with them as they understand that this journey is more than just a number on the scale, but that this is an important tool for my lipedema inflammation management.
Oh, I see. So the weight isn't the problem, it's the inflammation. That sounds familiar.
I am personally going back on Wegovy. Those medications have changed my life. They have given me the ability to move when I'm inflamed.
It's interesting that Kara kind of does the same thing Anna does too, where weight loss isn't the point, but she sure will mention her weight loss as a positive. Why I'm proud AF. Last April at FDRS, I told the Lipediva that my goal for the upcoming year was to get my inflammation in check. Like, seriously figure it out more than just compression or pumping. Then I did nothing till September. But I took the opportunity of having my tonsils out to switch to a drastically reduced sugar way of eating. I had noticed my legs throbbed and were restless if I had sugar, to the point that it was driving me insane. I was not expecting it, but man, did my body respond. The reduction in pain and tightness kept me motivated to stick with it. Today, almost 5 months later, I saw a number on the scale that I haven't seen in 20 years. The girl that had been repeatedly told, "You'll never lose weight, you have lipedema," is down 67 pounds since September. All but one of that was before adding in a GLP-1. I decided to be in control of my lipedema instead of it in control of me. Lipediva is such an iconic username. She's another influencer, by the way. I think it's very telling that this conversation they had was at the FDRS conference, which is basically a giant ad in itself. But that's another thing I went over in my deep dive, so I won't rehash it here. Kara claims that she lost a bunch of weight before starting a GLP-1 just by changing her diet. And I'm happy for her. But I find it fascinating that she concludes these slides on Instagram by saying that people told her that she couldn't lose weight because of her lipedema. And she's proving those people wrong. And I think she's absolutely correct. People with lipedema can lose weight just like everyone else. But Kara still has posts pinned to the top of her Instagram page about the multiple liposuction surgeries she's had with Dr. Jamie Schwartz. Kara says in her bio that she's maintaining her results since she had liposuction, but those slides we just read tell a very different story. She didn't just maintain, she lost 67 pounds, and it seems like she's losing more. And one of those people telling her she couldn't lose weight with lipedema was Dr. Schwartz.
I want to just tell people that lipedema is no one's fault. The people that have it, there's nothing you could have done differently. There's nothing. Everybody that I talk to with lipedema, I say, you're healthier than I am. It's not about that.
Maybe he didn't say the words, "you can't lose weight with lipedema," but how else are we supposed to interpret those statements? It's just wild to me that Kara is still very active in the lipedema community and seemingly happy with Dr. Schwartz, while also acknowledging that she lost a bunch of weight just by changing her diet long after those surgeries. There never seems to be any consideration that she might have lost that weight and improved her symptoms without surgery, or just made her surgeries easier by doing all of that beforehand. And I think that's because her surgeon told her that there's nothing else she could do. Something else that's strange is I noticed that Kara attributes her weight loss to the anti-inflammatory nature of her diet. She says she cut out sugar and reduced dairy, and that drastically improved her inflammation. And I'm sure that's true, but if you lost 67 pounds, I'm sorry, but not all of that is inflammation. I would assume that most of that was fat loss due to being in a calorie deficit. And if she continues to lose weight with the GLP-1, then that will also probably be fat loss, still due to a calorie deficit. This zero sugar thing feels like when people lose a bunch of weight with a keto or carnivore or plant-based diet, and then they start evangelizing about how that's the only thing that works. Maybe that's the only thing that feels sustainable to you, but the truth is that anyone will lose weight with any kind of calorie deficit, no matter what they're eating. That's just physics. Ironically, all of those diets are very popular in the lipedema community, especially keto, and everyone says they work because they're anti-inflammatory. I don't doubt that cutting out processed foods helps with inflammation, but if you're losing weight, it doesn't matter if you have lipedema or not. It's because you're eating less. The thing about these diets is that if you're cutting out a bunch of food groups, it can be easier to inadvertently eat at a calorie deficit, even if you don't realize it. I've been tracking my calories and macros for over 2 years, and I have noticed that when I up my protein and fat and lower my carbs, especially processed carbs, I feel fuller and generally feel better. It makes losing weight or maintaining so much easier. You don't have to think about it as much. Kara mentioned she had her tonsils out and that's what inspired her to start this new diet. And that was confusing. Maybe since she was limited in what she could eat after surgery, she felt like it was as good a time as any. I always hear about people eating ice cream after tonsillectomy, so I don't necessarily associate that with reducing sugar. But no matter the reason, I'm glad she found something that works for her. She's right that inflammation is associated with lipedema. Experts across the board aren't really sure where the pain comes from, but since a lot of patients have increased macrophages, many have speculated that it could be due to tissue hypoxia and inflammation. So I can't say these lipedema influencers promoting anti-inflammatory medications or diets are off base, but to attribute massive weight loss purely to reducing inflammation, that's a strange thing for a bunch of people to start saying suddenly. So it struck me as a possible herbstism. We can't talk about lipedema without talking about Dr. Karen Herbst. She's called the foremost lipedema expert in the US by a lot of people who don't know what they're talking about, in my opinion. Again, please refer to the debate around this fat disorder if you want a more detailed breakdown. There are timestamps. I'm sorry to keep referring you to that video, but there's just too much lore to get into, and I don't want this to turn into a 3.5-hour video. There's a lot wrong with Dr. Herbst's theories around lipedema, including her belief that it's caused by dysfunction in the lymphatic system, her belief that this lymphatic dysfunction causes lipedema fat to grow spontaneously, and her belief that lipedema is a connective tissue disorder associated with a bunch of other symptoms, without good evidence to support any of that. But personally, one of my biggest issues with Dr. Herbst is her close association to businesses that sell treatments for lipedema that are not proven, but they do make a lot of money. For example, both of the plastic surgeons I've already mentioned, Dr. Amron and Dr. Schwartz, work directly with Dr. Herbst. She currently works under Dr. Amron's advanced lipedema treatment. She's also the chief medical officer of Lymphopress, a company that produces compression pumps. Pumps are proven to help with lymphedema, which is a fluid disorder, but they're not proven to help with lipedema, which is a fat disorder. But since Dr. Herbst believes those two conditions are connected, she promotes pumps for lipedema patients, whether or not they have lymphedema too. Why might that be? Who knows?
And I also want to suggest Lymphopress is connected with some of the best therapists and people that can diagnose this condition around the country.
When I saw influencers like Kara and Anna and the Lipediva promoting GLP-1 medications for inflammation, my mind automatically went to Dr. Herbst. She is the fountain from which misinformation flows and trickles down to the lay public, in my opinion. I just did a basic Google search for Karen Herbst GLP-1, and I immediately came across a video on the Lipedema channel. If you watched my long lipedema video, you're probably already familiar with this YouTube channel, and you probably hold it in the same disdain that I do. This channel hosts what they call patient roundtables, which are like Zoom meetings featuring the host, Brenda Viola, expert guests like Dr. Herbst and Linda Ann Kahn, and influencers like Kara Cruz. But anyone can join and watch. And if you do ever choose to join, please be respectful. This is a space for patients to get together and talk about their experiences, and generally speaking, I don't have a problem with them. Problem I have is with these experts, because these roundtables are sponsored by Lymphopress.
You reach out to me. I'm like it white on rice, trying to get you connected with your local rep.
These roundtables have been going on for quite some time now, but I just so happened to hit the jackpot with this one from September 2024. Somehow it captures the topics I wanted to talk about today, as well as topics from my last two videos. Not only does Dr. Herbst talk about her opinion on GLP-1s, but Kara is there talking about her tonsillectomy, and my best friend Linda Ann Kahn is there talking about nonsense, as usual.
I'm actually lecturing next week in Nashville, Tennessee on aromatherapy and the fascia.
I know I've already given you some background on why I'm not the biggest fan of Dr. Herbst, but this video really sets the stage for why I think she's full of it. The first thing she talks about when she joins this meeting is her work on getting the ICD-10 codes for lipedema. These are the World Health Organization's official codes for medical conditions, and one of the reasons Dr. Herbst and her colleagues have worked so hard to get these ICD-10 codes established is to make it easier for lipedema patients to get their treatments covered by insurance. Which sounds great until you remember who Dr. Herbst is and all the companies she's associated with. At the time of this video, they were still accepting comments from the public about these proposed codes. And here's what Dr. Herbst had to say about that.
Is there something specific we should say that would be helpful in the comments?
So basically the comments, you could write a comment and say, this is all great. I love it. Thank you so much. We're done. But if the more comments we get for issues that you have with the ICD-10 codes that we've presented, the more work it is for us and the possibility for a longer delay. So I think I think the more support we get, the better, but the more picky everybody is over it, the more work it is for us to collate it all together. And then again, that might delay us. And I was in the group of, I need it to be absolutely perfect. We want everything and we want it perfect and blah, blah, blah. And now I'm like, let's get those codes. What do we got to do to get those codes and at least get one that says lipedema, even if it just was one ICD-10 code for lipedema, and that was it, I would be happy because then that makes it a real entity. Negative comments about what we've written, if you really feel strongly about it, then yeah, we want to hear you because we're doing this, for patients to improve their care. And if you think it's going to affect your care and not be the right thing for you, gosh darn it, we want to hear from you. But if you're kind of wishy-washy about it and you're, then maybe just say, yay, and move on.
If you're uncertain, don't say anything at all. We just want to push everything through as quickly as possible. Words to live by. So we talked earlier about how Kara Cruz had a tonsillectomy, and she kind of associated that with the changes in her diet. I noticed in the description of this video, it says, "You can hear in Kara Cruz's voice the after effects of recent surgery to address her adenoids/tonsils. In another connecting the dots moment, Dr. Herbst discussed and explained the correlation between the lymphatic system and her condition." Sure, the adenoids and tonsils are part of the lymphatic system, but it seems like Dr. Herbst is trying to connect that to Kara's lipedema.
I just had my tonsils and adenoids out. I still sound funny, but I was told through the ENT that they are part of the lymphatics now, or being classified as that. And mine were 3 times larger than he's ever seen. And I just wondered if there was something that I should really do to kind of keep them from the possibility of regrowth that I heard is an option, or if there's something, now that they're gone, I should really look for or worry about, or just your thoughts on them being part of the lymphatics and being enlarged due to lipedema kind of body.
So we think of lipedema as an inflammatory disease, right? And it probably is, but in a kind of a different way. So it may be that your body is just overdoing it in terms of your immune system. You're all, like, if somebody was at a level 5 and that's normal, you're a 7. So you function, your immune system functions at a 7 all the time. So it's overdoing it just enough, but not enough for us to draw your blood and go, oh yeah, there, you're overdoing it, because it's within the tissue itself. So it may be a marker that your immune system likes to overdo. In terms of the regrowth, they burn it, right? They burn the area, so it's unlikely to regrow, which is, good news for you because they were so large.
Every claim Dr. Herbst makes begins with the false premise that lipedema is this lymphatic condition where the fluid causes fat to grow exponentially. Kara has been fed this misinformation by so many people, all associated with Dr. Herbst, that of course she would draw that conclusion herself. She's given this false information that her fat will continue to grow progressively because of this lymphatic condition, so when she had enlarged tonsils, which are part of the lymphatic system, of course she'd be afraid they could grow back. Just like she's been told that her fat could grow back even after surgery. But Dr. Herbst is just like, nah, you'll be fine.
I think you'll be fine.
But under her flawed premise, how is this surgery any different from lipedema surgery? Why is it that this supposed lymphatic dysfunction could cause tonsils to grow and cause fat to grow, but we're not worried about the tonsils regrowing after surgery? Curious. And that really just sets us up for the main thing I wanted to know, which was Dr. Herbst's opinion on GLP-1 medications for lipedema.
People in the audience want to know what your thoughts are on GLP-1 medications for lipedema, Dr. Herbst.
I prescribe them all the time.
Okay, so if we accept Dr. Herbst's claim that lipedema can cause fat to grow spontaneously, how would a GLP-1 help with that? Primarily, what they do is suppress a person's appetite. Fewer calories in, you lose weight. But wait, that can't work for lipedema patients, right? I thought their fat was different and it didn't respond to diet or exercise.
They're really great anti-inflammatories. So let's say that pale ginger pear is living at a 7, and that's just causing, issues. It's causing fat to grow more so than it should. Now she's down to a 4. Well, she's now noticing that her fat's not getting that signal to grow anymore. So she's swelling less and yada, yada down the line.
Enter the inflammation explanation. Do I believe they can help with inflammation? Sure, there's a lot of evidence that that's the case. But let's break this down in the context of these ICD-10 codes. Let's say Dr. Herbst gets her definition of lipedema accepted. It would probably include a lot of nonsense about the lymphatics and how it's a connective tissue disorder. Just a lot of word salad to explain how human beings could defy the laws of thermodynamics. If GLP-1s cause lipedema patients to lose weight just because it reduces inflammation, that's something entirely different. That allows Dr. Herbst to keep pushing this narrative that lipedema resists diet and exercise. And what's more, assuming these ICD-10 codes are accepted, it allows Dr. Herbst and other people to prescribe GLP-1s for lipedema and probably get them covered under insurance. Dr. Herbst talks about fighting for these ICD-10 codes so that treatments can get covered, while on a call that spends so much time pitching extremely expensive lymphopress pumps that are often not covered by insurance. And now there's this whole other angle of GLP-1 medications.
It's a pain to get sometimes. Some insurances refuse to cover it. Medicare doesn't cover it, except for some specific plans.
Part of me wants to be like, you know what? Whatever whatever people need to believe. Because I genuinely believe weight loss medications are helpful tools, and they really can change people's lives for the better. So what if Anna says she's on Wegovy for inflammation? She initially lost about 100 pounds with it, so isn't that preferable to staying where she was or gaining? And so what if Kara thinks that zero sugar is the only way she can lose weight with lipedema? Isn't the point that she improved her health? Personally, even though I have some conflicting feelings about the atheist speaker Matt Dillahunty, I've always liked his motto, I want to believe as many true things and as few false things as possible. If I were given a medicine that worked and I later found out it was a placebo, I'd be pretty annoyed. Actually, that's not even a hypothetical. I'm pretty sure that has happened to me, and I am annoyed. I'll have to talk more about that later. I keep mentioning it, but it's just such a long story. I don't really think the ends justify the means here. The placebo effect is a fascinating phenomenon, and there are ways we can use it to our advantage. But I also think it can be dangerous. Maybe GLP-1s really are reducing pain and inflammation for lipedema patients. But isn't it also possible that those are side effects of losing weight and improving their overall health? Doesn't it matter that doctors like Karen Herbst and her influencer patients could be pushing a false narrative about what lipedema is and why GLP-1s can help? I mean, even before the Ozempic boom, there was an FDRS conference where Dr. Herbst said that amphetamines could help with lipedema because they shrink the fat cells.
And if you've ever been to my clinic, it's a good chance that we talked about amphetamines. And these include things like dextroamphetamine, Adderall, and phentermine. And phentermine is a medication that's used in obesity. It's also one part of a two-part drug in Q-simia. So I'm going to talk about that later, but just to let you know that amphetamines are one way to bring these big fat cells down to a more normal size.
Yeah, you want to know why that happens? Because amphetamines can reduce your appetite. Dr. Herbst pushes so many well-established weight loss methods for her lipedema patients, cutting processed food, taking GLP-1s, taking amphetamines. But she's, allergic to acknowledging why they work, because that doesn't fit her narrative about what lipedema is. Plenty of people are totally fine with taking a placebo or doing things that seem to work without hard evidence behind it. I guess it's okay, but I can't ignore the state of the world we live in. People aren't just getting a placebo and moving on with their day. They're preaching about the placebo online, and if you use their discount code, you can get 30% off. And even worse, there are experts profiting off of these things. The lipedema community is so tightly knit, and Dr. Herbst and her associates readily just cozy right up with them. They portray themselves as caring advocates while blatantly selling things in a way that feels so transparent it's almost comical.
I'm like it white on rice, trying to get you connected with your local rep. And to my glee, it was Dave DeBacco, who, guess what, everybody? He's my nephew. Ha!
You know, like you said, this isn't a commercial for LymphaPress, even though these webinars are sponsored by LymphaPress.
These roundtables are such an echo chamber. I feel like so many widely spread pieces of misinformation start here and at the FDRS conferences. I mentioned that this lipedema roundtable happened to connect to my last two videos. One was about Anna's podcast, where she claimed that Dr. Herbst told her she had rare obesity genes that no one knows about and no one will ever study. I use this as yet another example of Anna's terminal uniqueness. First, it was that calories don't apply to her because of lipedema. Now it's that lipedema treatments don't apply to her because of these rare genes.
Essentially, this is the person that is most experienced in this who has never seen this gene before. This pairing of genes. And they are both related to apoptosis. There's limited information, i.e. there's no medical research written about it. It's either been hypothesized or tracked in some way, but it's not there's no knowledge of other than it's related to this function, what it actually does. So now we know that these genes caused all my symptoms, the weight stuff, the anemia, the lipedema, the tumor, the thyroid issues, but we can't really do anything about it.
And at the time, we kind of just had to take her word for it that this is what Dr. Herbst said to her, but I believed it because it sounded like something she'd say. But would you believe this roundtable gave me confirmation that that probably was the case?
And also, I'm also getting very much so into the genetics. And it's not like the big genetics where you're going to find the gene for lipedema, because I don't have that capability, but I'm doing personalized genetics. And it's been really, really interesting because everybody is different. And it's not like, oh gosh, look at all these ladies with lipedema look exactly alike. It's everybody looks different, and everybody has a unique gene or two or three or four, and I can't look at all the genes at once. So we look at particular things, but I think that using personalized genetics is really making a difference, and it's the next stage.
Oh, so it's not just that Anna is unique. Everyone is. All of these lipedema patients may have distinct genes that make them defy physics. And Dr. Herbst isn't a geneticist, so she can't break down exactly what these genes do. You just have to take her word for it, I guess. You have these special genes, so you need to buy this pump and get these surgeries and take this medication and these supplements. That's my conclusion about all of this, of course. I can't peer into Dr. Herbst's mind and see her motivations. Even if you haven't seen my long video, would you agree that Dr. Herbst doesn't really seem trustworthy?
And I read on the internet that in the future, like 10 years down the road, that junior high school students will be presenting their science projects on millions of people's DNA.
I mean, she is a doctor, but she's an endocrinologist. Does she really have any business doing these personalized gene tests and trying to explain them to her patients? We've already seen Anna talk on various social media about getting these gene tests. And I've also heard Dr. Herbst talk about food sensitivity testing too. And I'm starting to think that's the next round of ads we're about to start seeing. I don't know, maybe we won't see it on Instagram, but I have no doubt that that kind of stuff is circulating within these lipedema roundtables and at the FDRS conferences. Use code HERBST for 30%. And just as bad as Dr. Herbst, Linda Ann Kahn is constantly on these calls pushing her essential oils and massage. Both of those things are real treatments, but not in the way she describes them.
I'm actually lecturing next week in Nashville, Tennessee on aromatherapy and the fascia.
Those are also coincidentally things I went over in my last video, where I was also talking about a controversial massage technique that feels a little culty.
Myofascial release is wonderful to help with that. If you can find a John Bonds myofascial release therapist in your area.
You have got to be kidding me, I cannot escape this man. Yes, of course, we should hold influencers like Anna and Allison and Kara accountable for spreading misinformation and advertising drugs and surgery to their followers. But they're only one piece of this puzzle. Wherever there are influencers spreading medical misinformation, there's almost always a sketchy professional providing them with those talking points. Well, this was supposed to be just a quick little video since my last one took so long to make, but we'll see how that goes. And if you missed it, my last video was about a wild and kind of culty massage technique called myofascial release. It is 2 hours of insanity, and I actually cut out a part of it that I felt was a bit too much of a tangent. And I'm thinking of making that into a separate video too. Honestly, I kind of prefer making those longer form video essays, but they take so long to make and so much effort to research. So I might try to pop in here and there with a quicker video like this from time to time. Thank you all so much for stopping by. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe if you enjoy my content, and I will see you next time.
This is not a commercial.